which song best represents the 80s best? Diane Franklin will go up first, and she will make a case for Madonna's Like a Virgin as the song that best represents the decade of the 80s.
The 80s, women were coming from a place where they were not in the workforce, but once the 80s started, we were now in the workforce, in the office. We're in a place where we're competing against men. And Madonna was very interesting because she really represented women coming out, being all feminine, all womanly, sexy, and ironically, fabulously, she was actually making a living trying to not lean on a man to make her money. She was trying to go in on her own, make her own money. And when she did like a Virgin, you know, it's very interesting because that song changed everything. It made people go, whoa, like women's sexuality is really important. It was a time when AIDS was coming out and people were like pulling back on that because we're pulling back about sexuality. So all of a sudden she made it like, yeah, it's okay to be a woman. It's okay to be sexual. It's okay to talk about virginity. This is a very empowering subject and song. I mean, it certainly got everybody's attention. And I'm sure that all of you know this song. Why? Because it really, really it brought the 80s. It made the 80s. It really was and whether you like the song or not, whether you like Madonna or not, you have to admit that she made her mark with that song. And I have to tell you something, she gave a lot of freedom to a lot of women sexually, and I keep saying sexual, but the truth is it's about the empowerment and being who you are and being feminine and being able to stand for on your own 2 feet. And that is what women needed to do in the 80s. We needed to go out in the public, be in the guy's workforce, and not just be that cute girl with the high shoulders, padded shoulders, but we needed to be respected and paid equally. And so it was very difficult in the 80s. For anyone who's listening, you may just think, oh yeah, I go to work. Well, that wasn't happening. The 80s was where it started. So that's my pitch.
Of course, Diane Franklin will make a case for 1984's Apple Macintosh computer is the most revolutionary invention of the 80s.
I remember being of the generation that used to type, and then you had to use the little eraser thing and the thing. Like, it was such a hard thing. But this computer, the 1984 Macintosh computer, it had graphics and it had a mouse. And so now we got the visual. Not only that, but we've got the typing and the visual. We didn't have the internet yet, but it was the beginning of self-expression and creativity. It was the beginning of control for the personal, everyday, ordinary person who could afford it at the time to be able to start using our imagination. Again, look, I wouldn't be here talking to you right now in this interview unless we didn't have these computers that we could take home.
Guys and gals, monologues, soliloquies, speeches that moved us. Mr. Joe Mantegna has selected the Martin Luther King I Have a Dream speech as a monologue, speech, or soliloquy that evoked a lot of feelings out of him.
I finally get in my car and I figure I got to at least try. I pull into a gas station just before getting onto an expressway, and there's a Jeep full of National Guard guys. And they're fueling their Jeep, and I look at them, I said, where are you guys going? Which direction are you guys going? They said, well, we're heading out the Eisenhower Expressway out in the western suburbs because they've heard reports of people throwing, bottles and rocks off the freeway. I said, can I follow you guys out that way? They said, well, you can do what you want. Can't protect you, we can't stop for you, but if you want to drive behind us, go ahead. And that's what I did. And I remember driving behind that Jeep with my car down like this. Nothing happened, but I mean, I'm looking around, and the Jeep goes, and finally pulls off, and I get to the venue. And we do it, we open up for Neil Diamond. At the end of the concert, we all go up on the roof of the place that we were playing, and I see the fires in the distance and the flames. And this is the result of the fact that Martin Luther King had been killed, the same gentleman that a few years earlier had been marching through my town, and I saw a little picture of my friend holding the sign. Now, jump cut again, many years later. I had some success as an actor. I'm in Washington, D.C. I do a thing with the National Memorial Day concert every year. I'm there early that particular year. They asked me, would you like to go? We're opening up the Martin Luther King Memorial in about a week, but it's not open to the public at all. But if you'd like to, we'll give you a private showing. the statue of the memorial. I said, yeah, I would love to do that. And I remember them taking me in there. Here it was, all by myself. I think it was with my assistant who works with me. We walk into the memorial, and to be able to go and be one of the first human beings to see this was this gigantic sculpture of this gentleman. And it was just so awe-inspiring. And I thought to myself, now this all goes back to the reason that speech was so significant to me. Because, as an actor, that's what we live by. We live by our words. But if you listen to that speech that he gave on the steps of, I believe it was at the Lincoln Memorial, I had a dream. It's, when as an actor, you hear monologues and you see monologues and this, that. But when you hear something like that and you realize this is not entertainment, this is a recounting of history. And when it moves you to where it's like, it's actually causing your senses to react and your things inside you to churn and tears come to your eyes, you realize this is, there's something, there's a religious aspect to it, I guess is all I could say.
Robert now will go first. He will make a case, I hope for one of them, William Wyler or Michael Curtiz as the most versatile film director of all time.
Curtiz was another guy of that period, a little later. But listen to this range of Michael Curtiz stuff. It is everything from, how about in 1 year? Okay, listen to this one. He does The Adventures of Robin Hood with Errol Flynn, Captain Blood with Errol Flynn, The Comancheros with John Wayne, King Creole, which may be the best Elvis ever did when he's the boxer in New Orleans, White Christmas with Bing Crosby and Billy Kay, We're No Angels with Humphrey Bogart, Jim Thorpe, All-American with Burt Lancaster, Young Man with a Horn, Kirk Douglas. But in 1 year, the same year, he won the Oscar for these two movies. Am I talking about the versatility?
That's versatility.
Yankee Doodle Dandy, same year, he did these two movies. Yankee Doodle Dandy and Casablanca. The old guys had a bigger advantage because it was a job. And he did 3-4 movies a year. So the two guys I talk about are William Wyler, who I'm afraid most of the audience won't know. But he was the very first recipient of the AFI Life Achievement Award. He was, I think he won like 5 Oscars, this guy. I mean,
yes.
William Wyler's movies are, I gotta get the word my list. Okay, listen to this list. Now, he goes everywhere from this is starting in the 30s, so he does everything from The Best Years of Our Lives, Funny Girl with Streisand, Roman Holiday with Audrey Hepburn, The Big Country, one of my favorite westerns, Ben-Hur, Friendly Persuasion, Mrs. Miniver, Jezebel, Dodsworth, and The Westerner with Fort Gary Cooper.